you can't go into negotiations unless there's an underlying rule set. Let's use the Donald Trump property metaphor. If you walked into Manhattan, he's going to do a deal, wants to build a building in Atlantic City, whatever. You can't negotiate it, bring the contractors in, and then have them build it halfway, and then turn around and say, I don't want to do this anymore, and then go and shoot the city planner or threatening to kill the mayor of New York. There's a rule set, even in the business world in the United States, that Donald Trump operates in. It's the same in the international system. And now he's finally getting caught out because he's trying to write his own rule sets on the fly. And that's been his style. He's been able to get away with it, moving between the gray areas of some of these events and processes in terms of, what you might call negotiations, but really are not negotiations. But it's over now. All those moves have been played out. There is an international rule set that other countries are working under, but not the United States. And now it's showing. Now it's really showing. And what he's doing now is he's lost. That's my only conclusion. I really have a hard time trying to work out what the objective is, what the intention is.
That's been one of my frustrations too, because and that's a great point you bring up, by the way. Where does Trump even want this to go? I mean, if he's playing 4D chess, if he's doing all this stuff to just look one way or to set something up, I mean, towards what objective? That even I forget about whether it's realistic. What does he want? Because you're certainly not going to compel Putin to come to the table. You're not going to enable Ukraine to win or reverse the situation on the ground. And absent those two possibilities, taking those two off the table, the only thing that could be said less, and we'll talk about this, is it, you said a second ago, the military-industrial complex would certainly like it, and one might get that idea listening to also yesterday, Jack Keane.
The Europeans were very clear. This is not a money issue for us. We're going to pay whatever it costs to take care of Ukraine, and we're going to purchase the weapons from the United States and do this. So they are really all in here. And where the president is, he's all in as well. Putin has got to be taking notice of that. He wanted to undermine our resolve in the Europeans, and he certainly wanted to break the will of the Ukrainian people to put more pressure on Zelensky so he would make major concessions. Big picture, Putin has been at war for 41 months. He still hasn't taken significant territory in Ukraine. His presidency is at stake, and he wants those concessions being made by Zelensky, and he wanted them to be supported by the President of the United States. It is not happening. So he has to begin to rethink where is he and how much stake is he going to continue to risk his presidency by this involvement.
Surely, Patrick, surely he doesn't believe any of that. I mean, you can say that Zelensky is detached from reality because he's got life and death on his decisions here, but you can't make that charge against somebody like Jack Keane. What do you make of that?
I don't know, Daniel. I think you can make that charge with Jack Keane because they're still recycling these old tropes like Putin hasn't taken any significant territory since the first days of the invasion. I mean, and it's all personalized to Putin. Again, Putin's presidency is in trouble. Putin's presidency is not in trouble. His approval ratings are very high, higher than any Western leader, probably in our lifetime. And not only that, after securing Lugansk and Donetsk and the territorial borders of those regions, that's a massive win, symbolic win for Russia, to the public as well. They're backing this effort. So that's not going to fly. So what is he doing there? The key word was in the beginning of Keane's statement. He's talking about the financial transaction. So that's the fallback position for the U.S. is it's good for business. So if that's the worst position, if that's the fallback position, then they're quite happy to go with it. So basically, if you want, the conspiracy theory here is it's a win-win. Russia is going to achieve its military and security objectives, and the U.S. and the West and the military-industrial complex will secure its financial interests. And in that case, I would say it's a standoff. And so it's status quo on the battlefield. And then in the background, everybody's making money in the West, and we'll see where the lines are drawn.
People. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, let's also just kind of do a bit of a dive here on the sanctions issue alone. So that's what Keane is advocating here. That's what Zelensky just said. And you also heard that that's, you know, where Trump's coming down with these sanctions that Lindsey Graham is so excited about. But when you look at the number of actual sanctions, whether these are on a group, a state, or individual, there's somewhere around 16,000 specific sanctions on Russia, 18 full packages, especially from the European Union, since this war began here. And you see, all it's done to weaken Russia is to weaken them by making their military stronger and retooling their industry to where it can crank out considerably more of the key armaments for their offensive operations, much more than we can for offensive or defensive. So when you look at just the elementary facts, I just have to wonder, why is Trump saying this? Why is he advocating for something like this? And it looks like, and you can never tell, it looks like he believes that it actually will compel compliance from Putin. And then you have Jack Keane saying this, because the alternative is, if they don't actually believe it, is that your second scenario there might be more plausible, that they know it's not and they don't care. They're okay with it because it's going to continue to keep the military-industrial gravy train rolling. Can we be that cynical?
Yeah, you can, but you know, just even the Europeans they have to trade with Russia. Look at for the energy sector. Look at the energy sector. Europe is buying oil, still having to buy oil and gas from Russia. I think in 2024 they did about 23 billion or something like this, plus the uranium, plus a bunch of other things. So what's Washington going to turn around and put 100% tariffs on everything coming out of Brussels? And he just made a deal, a great trade deal or whatever with Ursula von der Leyen, which isn't really a deal, just a lot of announcements. But you're going to turn around and just declare and threaten everybody, including all of your allies. You're not going to have any allies left.
Well, now let's just take a look at that one aspect, because you mentioned earlier the fact that there's still plenty in Europe that are getting Russian gas. We're still, even right now, it's less than it was by a large portion, but there's still a considerable percentage of oil and gas they get from Russia. Now, if this tariffs comes into play and we say, okay, that's it, now it's in effect, and there's 100% tariff on anybody who gets Russian petroleum, and then we try to start slapping something on China and especially on India, but then we don't slap it on the European countries, because I can't see him doing that, because that would only hurt the West. It wouldn't hurt Russia as much. But how would that work with India if they see, wait, you slapped a tariff on me and you didn't slap it on the Europeans? I mean, that seems that's going to put us in a big bind. How's that going to work out?
It is. There's so much bilateral trade between India and the United States. I even think part of the Apache helicopter and some of the other, globalized defense procurement schemes for some of these major U.S. Military products involved India, plus the IT sector, the big data sector, the Silicon Valley's links with India. It's not going to happen. There's no way. You know, even if, so Trump sat with Ursula von der Leyen, which was also entertaining recently, and he started. Yeah,
yesterday.
He started talking about windmills and his great golf courses, but he said that. We're going to do this huge deal, this $750 billion energy deal, and you're going to buy all of your energy from us. Europe doesn't even have the infrastructure to handle that much LNG and to handle all of that, those imports that might or might not come from the United States. And then he says, well, the Europeans have agreed to do $600 billion and invest in the United States, sort of like the announcement he made when he was in Saudi Arabia in the Gulf. They're going to put $1 trillion in, and the next day it was another $1 trillion. Europe is not going to plow $600 billion of investment into the United States just because Donald Trump threatened them with a 15% tariff. It's not going to happen. I don't know where. This is all straining credibility right now. Europe has no money to invest in the United States, so they're not going to make any big capital investments over 3 years. What they did is put a 3-year mark on it. You see the statement by the Europeans, say over 3 years. Well, at the end of 3 years, if anyone holds them, he won't be around. Trump's out. So no one's going to hold Europe accountable for that. This is all just kind of, cast sandcastles in the air. sort of thing. And it's almost like people that are doing, when you do a public press conference with Trump, if you're a world leader, you just have to nod your head and just get through it, agree in principle, and then just get out of there. And then let the headlines go, because all Donald Trump wants is the headlines. He can't nail down any of this stuff. None of this stuff that was discussed in the Gulf is nailed down. And look at all the press he generated from that.
Yeah.
And it worked in the U.S. So, I mean, that's kind of like what we're dealing with here.